Hello, everyone. My name is Demetrius Frazier. You know where you are. You're here at Black Men Leads YouTube page, and we're here with some amazing guests this evening. For those who are unfamiliar, I am Demetrius Frazier, the founder and executive director of Black Men Lead, a nonprofit based in Chesterfield, Virginia. Our goal is to really influence, to affect, and to improve the literacy outcomes of Black males specifically, but we also work elsewhere in the community. We have programming that's inside of schools, but we also have book clubs. And so for tonight, we're going to focus in on a specific book that I think each of you would enjoy. I have some amazing authors that are part of the project. We're going to talk about their life, we're going to talk about their work, and get into the book itself. So tonight's book is this one right here, Next in Line to Lead, The Voice of the Assistant Principal. And we actually have some of those authors in the building tonight. So I have the privilege of talking to this group, and hopefully you'll enjoy this conversation as well. I want to do a little bit of your bios. For all of you who are on the call tonight, they have very long bios. These are very experienced, very talented, very educated people. I'm not going to read their whole bio, but I'm going to give you enough, and then we're going to kind of talk through the rest of their experiences as we go along. So I have Lawrence Smith, who is a native of Austin, Texas, and serves as an academic dean in the Tyler Independent School District. Throughout Smith's adult years, she has served diligently in the educational arena as a mentor, master teacher, high school and college athletic coach, district instructional specialist, assistant principal, and now is the academic dean. She's also the author of the book, Thoughts of a Brown Child. Dr. Kimbria Jackson, a native of Warner Robins, Georgia, serves as an assistant principal at a premier STEM high school in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Dr. Jackson has served as a math instructional coach, a curriculum writer, as well as worked tirelessly with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund Teacher Quality and Retention Program, where she provides professional training for participants in the field of education. Rashad Pitt serves as an assistant principal in our local area here in Richmond, Virginia Public Schools. Pitt, throughout his 15 plus years educational career, has served in numerous roles, including teacher in the public school, as well as the Department of Juvenile Justice, middle school success coordinator, and dean of students, to name a few. Robert Stevens, a native of Roanoke, Virginia, serves as an associate principal at Code RVA Regional High School. Stevens has served as an internship coordinator and a business and marketing teacher in public schools and the Department of Correctional Education. In a setting like this, if we were doing this, normally I would cite the individual's education, I would go through their degrees, but in the interest of time, I will summarize it this way. On this stage, our guests have accumulated 4 bachelor's, 6 masters, a doctorate, and 2 graduate certificates. And so they don't kill me later, I won't count up everyone's years of experience on the board here, but let's just say they have put in the time and they know what they're talking about. So please, in the comments, wherever you are, please help me welcome our special guest for this evening. How did I do? Did I say too much? I don't want to get too much into your bios and start getting to where you got like telling how many cats and dogs you have. I wanted to just get a feel, people get a feel for who you are, and hopefully they go and pick up the book, Next in Line to Lead, The Voice of the Assistant Principal. So as someone who works with educators, admins, teachers, let me ask the question, how are you guys doing? Are you well? So how many weeks in school now? How are you guys feeling tonight?
We're here, I think we're at a point where, we're going into our 3rd week of school. So we still have that newness, but at the same time, like it's definitely real,
Is
We're
it?
feeling it, yes. But I think the teachers and the students are excited to be back. I'm excited to be back in the building as well. It's, being in front of a computer is not the same as having the kids actually in the building with you. Yeah.
And I know I don't like it. I can't imagine for students who have to do that, morning and night, whether they're working, whether they're, doing their homework. I just can't imagine that experience. And also as a teacher on the other side of that little dot on the device, like, how does that work? So everyone else, startup went well.
I will say, it's funny you asked how are we doing. It's been really busy. We're in our 4th week of school, and it's been a lot dealing with COVID reporting, just trying to make sure students and teachers are doing what they're supposed to be doing with social distancing and wearing their mask appropriately. So it has been a huge task to make sure that we're practicing as safely as possible and creating that environment of a safe space for all. As we know, coming back from virtual learning into the school building has been like a reset for us all as educators, and it's kind of like we're back to year one. So that's the space I'm in, and when I poll my staff, this is also how they're feeling like a first year teacher, because everything now is different. And I'm feeling like a first year leader. So it's all different. For us, it's providing a different feel. At times it's a bit stressful because it is a lot, and you're adjusting to the new normal of being back in the building and how we're educating now. So it has been a lot, but you got to practice that self-care. So that's where I am.
I'm just encouraged that you said making sure they put on that mask appropriately, not the first part of the sentence where they're not putting the mask on. Is that?
Yeah. So you have some who don't cover their nose, and they want to walk around without it, or when they're eating, they forget to put it back on. So, things like that. Just making sure that they're doing those things.
And that's on top of just trying to educate them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Other stuff done. So
yes.
I wouldn't say I would have appreciated the work of assistant principals prior to the work we do now. When I was in school, I graduated, I couldn't tell you my assistant principals' names throughout my school career. But now seeing them in the background, seeing what really happens when things are going on in the classrooms and in the schools, I would say I really, really appreciate it. And that's why I'm so happy and glad that you guys decided to spend a few moments with us today. So I got questions. We're going to ping them back and forth. We're going to get everybody involved, talk about your parts in the book. Again, it's an amazing book. I like the way it was set up and how, each of you approached it. So I'm going to start with my good buddy here, Robert Stevens. He and I have gotten to work together a little bit since we're right here. We actually had a partnership, my organization to this school. But I will say this, Robert, I learned something about you in this book that I did not know. And I did not get from the bow ties and, the clean dress that you are.
I know where this is going.
You know where it's going. I didn't know that you were a troublemaker. Or I should say troublemaker to someone who got in trouble.
Right.
So I feel like that's a good place to start, because each of you shared something about your experience in getting to assistant principal that I thought was very unique for each of your stories. And your story being no different is that you didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, I want to be an admin. So talk to us about that journey from being a kid that was sent to the office because of disciplinary actions or conflict to now being the one who's handing out the disciplinary passes. Like, how did you get from that to that?
So it's funny you say that. Like, my mom always laughs, and like it's like the running joke in my family that I do what I'm doing right now, because I remember when I was a kid making those phone calls, Mom, you gotta come get me. Like, what would you do now? But I've been really fortunate to have great people, especially in the education setting, really guide me on the right path. A first generation college student. I did grow up in a 2-parent household. My parents were, they definitely stayed on me, even though I like to test the waters. I think sometimes I just got bored at school and I was a product of my environment. But one of the best things they really did was make sure I was involved. And in the book, I talk about my high school football coach, Coach Miller, and he was a very influential person in my life. Like, he just like I talk about him being a warm demander. Like you knew where he stood, but at the same time, you knew exactly that he cared for you as well. So take Coach Miller, take Miss Spragg as my school counselor. She's like, no, I'm gonna make sure I put you in these classes, Robert, because this is what you need to get to college. So leave Roanoke, go see a whole new environment. I had to stay in state because that's where the money was. So I got as far away from Roanoke as I could, as far as going to school, and really from there, life just blossomed. Like continuing to stay involved and stuff. That's when I picked up with DJing, and really just wanted to just expand. I graduated from college and high school knowing that I was going into business, and I fell into education. It was one of those things. I graduated, I needed a job, but I always liked working with kids. I mean, that was the truth of it. I mean, I did a sales job. I hated it. And I got my first job working in the Department of Correctional Education. I was 22 years old. At that point, I was at the state maximum penitentiary for juveniles. So they were keeping kids there till they were almost 21 years old. So I'm thinking in my mind, like, hey, I could have been at ODU with this kid 2 weeks ago, or, hanging out with this kid, but all because I made one decision this way, or I didn't get caught doing something I could have easily been arrested for. And from there, it just blossomed, just continuing to get involved, talk to people. And I really embraced the educational career and always struggled with, all right, I'm in education, but do I want to, be a tour DJ, or do I want to go corporate? But really, as I probably approached year 5 or 6, I had spoken with our director of secondary education, Dr. Wilson, and she was like, I think you can really do this. And from there, ended up getting a role as an administrative aide. And I really loved it. And I liked the leadership. I love the opportunity of the number of students I get to impact and have those one-on-one relationships with. I think that's the power of education, like having that those special relationships, that time where you can really build with children and really give them that guidance. And I think that was one of the things that helped me, and I think that's what I really like to do, honestly.
No, one, we have that also another connection there in Dr. Omega Wilson, where she was one of the first people that when we pitched our idea for coming into the county for Henrico,
right,
that they sat us with her, and we actually had to tell her what our goals and mission were. So when you said that in the book, and you said that she believed in you or thought you could do it, I remember that interaction. She's a no frills kind of person, right? She's getting to the point, but she's also going to tell you exactly what's right and what's wrong.
Right.
And she saw that in you, even given some of your path. Maybe you weren't exactly the teacher, from day one. If she saw that in you, that speaks a lot and it speaks volumes. But there's something that I thought was kind of a connecting tissue between you and Rashad. You both had a role within juvenile justice or correctional. And I want to start there, Rashad, with you. I'm gonna leave your HBCU affiliation out of this conversation. I'm just gonna project and go forward. Virginia Union's better, but we're gonna go to your experiences there, right? You are in. For those who are unfamiliar with Rashad, can you walk us through what is the makeup of your schools? We know it, but in Richmond City, you have a high population of Black students. You have a very different history of what education looks like in the city. Can you talk us through, one, your experiences in the correctional facility of juvenile justice, and then how that translates to your work that you do to try to impact lives as an assistant principal today?
Well, and absolutely. And thank you again for having me on here. And thanks, Rob, for connecting us all here. I really appreciate it. I would say I was working and it's actually my second tour in RPS. I was when I left Petersburg City, I came into Richmond, and I was a 6th grade history teacher. But I had a growing family at that time. The money wasn't looking right, so then I looked into opportunity to go into the Department of Juvenile Justice, and I only had a bachelor's at the time, so it was always something I wanted to do, to work with at-risk youth, being that I was at risk, very similar to Rob, where making poor choices. Actually, the reason that I am in Virginia, I actually was at Hofstra University, and I got to several altercations, which caused me to have to transfer to Virginia State University. So Virginia was my redemption state, and Virginia State was my redemption school. Thinking about the community I lived in, grew up in between the city and the county in New York, household being riddled with substance abuse. So thinking about the demographic I'm working with and thinking about how I grew up, it was easy for me to understand, I'm not saying everybody's story is the same, but being able to relate to the students that, coming from single family households where, drug and violence is attached to the household. So I was able to relate. And really, I didn't have the teaching portion was easy. It was the hard part was building that rapport with students, because as I, talk about in the book is, as a Black male, I represent resentment. I represent distrust. I represent things that are often not positive or adverse, to these students. So building that rapport, building that relationship, being consistent, being there was, something that I didn't think it was hard work, because every day was a new day, and you don't know how things can transpire over the matter of a few minutes. Working in that type of environment, because they can be cool 1 minute, but once you see students get up, that means that altercation is going to take place. To transition to my school, now historically, George Wythe is predominantly, the population is Black, but we now have the dynamic of our L population, which is predominantly Hispanic. So it's like now there's a shift, and we have to, be culturally responsive and adjust to that shift by having more, L support for our students. We have the Newcomer Academy, which supports our L learners with their levels from 1 to 4, just specific for them, and content areas that provide content related support for those students. So it's definitely different. But between Petersburg and Richmond, I've taught and worked with a high L population. So it's definitely been an adjustment, but I love being in the building. I'm getting my steps in, making sure I'm present. So it's definitely been a blessing.
Well, if you're like all the rest of us, we added the COVID 10, 15, 20, whatever the number is, but sitting in front of this camera has really not helped us. And you brought up a point, and I don't want to give away every part of the book, but you said something that summarizes what you just discussed. And you said, anytime you are working with a building with high level turnover, high poverty, and few adult males in the building, it can be very difficult. Unfortunately, in the school building that I've served, gaining the trust of students and teachers has been a challenge. And so we want to appreciate the work that you're doing to kind of bridge that gap and show the different faces and the different connections that students need to be successful. And so even with that, I want to shift over to Lauren, because Lauren, you dropped the gem on me, and I had to read it a couple times. It's weird that these essays are not really that long. And so you guys had to get straight to the point, get the message in, and get it done. But you said something that I really want to spend some time with, especially as it relates to school admins. You said in your essay, and again, it struck me as really special. You said, I investigate the stores, the churches, the community functions, the shopping centers my students attend. This often involves listening to feedback that may not be extremely complimentary, but perhaps identifies a source of community and educational disconnect. So I don't know where to start with that one, because one, you hit on a couple points around how active we need to be, well, as administrators and assistant principals with doing the work. You actually are going to the cookouts and the shopping centers and the Walmarts and going where they are instead of waiting for the inbox or the feedback on the email somewhere. You're actually doing the work to go out. Can you talk a little bit about why you take that angle, why you take that approach, and why you think that's really important for the success of your students?
Absolutely. Just like Mr. Pitt, I have a similar experience. Our campus is about 91% economically disadvantaged. We have about 66% Hispanic. Many of them are, we call them ELLs. And then we also have a high number of our African American students. A lot of times I take the approach of seeking to understand instead of being understood. I take that approach, and I have to know my students. And when I say I know them, I have to know them in terms of, if they have a job, I tell them I'm pulling up at your job. I'll be there because I want to see you work like you make me work at my job.
Right,
And
right.
so, if they're there, I'm coming to their jobs. I'm paying attention to just things in the neighborhood. I don't just get in my car, crank up and pull out and leave. I stop and I shop and just do those things intentionally because I want to see the students. I take my sons, I have sons down there to get their hair cut and everything. And we hang out and we talk. I have another young man on campus that I've already hooked him up with my barber because we have an issue. He won't take off his hat. And I said, we're going to fix that because you're going to get hooked up with my kid's barber. And so we booked it. I don't even have to be there. It's already paid for. He just has to show up because I want the kids to understand that I do see you. I hear you. I feel you. And unfortunately, sometimes that takes even hearing it from adults. All the feedback isn't always complimentary, and it may not be worded in the way that we want it worded. But I really, really, really try my best to hear the message because deep down, every parent, every student, they want to be successful. I mean, they are asking us to help support them in their educational journey in order to be successful. And so with that, even if it's not exactly how I want to hear it, I don't mind hearing it that way because I know the difference that it can make and the impact. My father, who recently passed, one of the things he would say over and over and over is don't listen to how I say it, listen to what I said. Because he had an interesting way of saying things and it wasn't always complimentary, but very profound. And so when I go to work every day, I tell kids, you're not hurting my feelings. Parents, you're not hurting my feelings. You're here advocating for your child. And I'm going to tell you what we think of on the school side and what we need from you so that we can kind of bridge that gap. And I just want my students to know that I'm here. I see you. I'll be here, good or bad, even if we have to administer a punishment. We punish the action, but not you, the child. We're moving forward.
And the reason why yours stuck with me so much, and it's not to say I have a favorite author. I'm not saying that, guys.
I got you.
But what I am saying is, I remember a statement by a student, and we're coming in and we're trying to, do the literacy thing. And, I was like, well, do you feel like your faculty is, do you think that we care? The reason why we're here is like, well, y'all only care when we're in the building. Yeah, I don't care about my life outside. And I was like, well, say some more. And we took just a few minutes to talk about it. And she said, well, let me give you an example. When I don't do what you want me to do in here, and I tell you why I didn't do it because I had such and such going on at home, y'all say none of that matters. This is what matters, right? So, think about some of the kids they have, like you said, they're economically disadvantaged. They may have turmoil happening at home, absolute chaos. Some of them don't even have like a consistent place to stay. And then when they come in and they don't have their homework assignment, it's like, well, you should have did your homework. I don't care about the rest of your life. And just to think about what you did, what you're doing, to say that all that other stuff, the other parts of you matter, and we're going to work on this whole thing together. I think that's what stuck with me so much. So I love the passion and the work it takes to do that. And again, I was reading between the lines. You said you got kids. I'm like, you got other obligations, right? You got family. You got your other things going on, and to be able to do that on top of it is amazing.
Yeah. And when I see these kids, even though they're not my kids, I try to treat them, handle them, talk to them, even discipline in the same way I would in terms of my children. So, you want to be fair, you want to be honest, you want to be transparent, you want to just know that, just because you do this one thing doesn't mean I'm finished with you, and we're just moving forward. And so I do treat them and try to think of them as my kid.
So, I'm a little interested, and you don't have to give me any details, no special stories, but when you go to get that feedback, are they laying you out? Are they like, I'm glad you're here. Let me give you the whole.
Okay, so let me just be honest. I'm pretty soft spoken right now as we're speaking, but I used to be a basketball coach, a track coach, a softball coach. So, I can take feedback, but then I can also stop the feedback as it needs to be stopped, and we can put it in like, okay, you've given your feedback and your feedback time is up. I hear you, and I'll call back. And sometimes, I'm always good with just drawing that line, because at the end of the day, it's not gonna hurt my feelings. People love their children, and
right.
and children don't want to be punished, and children don't want anything negative. They want the positive. And so, on another note, I praise so much better than I, in terms of punishment. I mean, if a kid does something, I will brag on them, advocate for them, give to them, do whatever. And so it's a lot easier when you're talking and getting that other feedback. So they know.
All right. So coach is not a pushover, is what you're saying. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely not.
You ain't be yelling at coach like that. All right. No. So one, just to remind folks who are here, make sure to go get the book. I lost a few of my little tabs. I got a little 1-year-old who's running around. She likes to just grab stuff. So definitely get the book. There's a lot of nuggets in there. Each of the authors who wrote something for this piece, there's something you can take away. And I do want to get to as many questions as I can, but if you have a question, drop it in the comments, and we'll definitely try to get it on air to ask our guest today. So last but not least, and we're going to circle back around and get to everyone else again, but Dr. Kimbria Jackson, you are in the nation's capital. Every time I look in the news, there's something different going on up there. And I don't know how, as an administrator or even just a resident, that all these things don't seem to affect the work that you do. And so between COVID, just getting things back reoriented to be a successful endeavor, and then all the outside stuff that happens in the area, what is it like being in a large city like that? And you've had some experience, I think, outside of larger cities. Like, how does that balance for you? Like, how does that work happen in such a large jurisdiction?
So I've been here for 10 years now. So my first 10 years, I was an educator in Georgia. And so when I came here, it was culture shock. I didn't understand some of the things. I didn't understand even just how we don't really have a school board. So there was, a lot of things that were completely different for me coming into this. As a school leader, I've had the opportunity to work in totally different wards of the district. And so I started out an assistant principal at a high school that is in Ward 7 or Ward 7-8. And it was very challenging. So some of the things that Lauren shared about how she built those relationships and things of that nature, I too had to do those very things. Going to their jobs, showing up after school to their activities, to their games and things of that nature, calling the parents to share good news, those types of things. Sorry for the sirens. But those types of things, also help to build and shape me as a leader, but also make an impact on my school community. It is quite interesting the way that things take place with DCPS, because we're a school system that's run by the mayor. And so when the mayor makes decisions, those decisions come through the deputy mayor of education, and so on and so forth. And it's just a ripple effect to the chancellor, and so on and so forth. And so even just today, we were notified that all students that are participating in any activities, any sporting activities, they must be vaccinated by November 1st. And so these are things that just come at us left and right in DC. And the school that I'm at now, totally different type of requirements for my students. Just the community is a little different. We are not technically a local school because I receive students from all across the district. So the makeup of my school is a large variety of students. We are predominantly African American. However, though my students come from different wards, and so they bring different things when they come from the different wards. So it can be challenging at times, but again, it's how you tackle those challenges. It's what you put forth to go about to build and bridge the community, build relationships with students and staff, and go from there. So I mean, everything that's thrown at us, we just take those punches and we roll with it, because what I've learned as a leader is that you have to remain fluid. It's not something that you're going to have to, that you are going to be stuck in a particular place and for how long, because you never know. So the experience in being in DC versus being in a school system in Georgia is like night and day for me. Just on the structure alone, I'm used to having a superintendent, not a chancellor. Those structures are completely different from me. So each one of our pods have a different superintendent, an instructional superintendent. So we operate completely differently, and that has been a learning curve for me, coming from where in Georgia, you have the superintendent, and then you have the principal, and then you have district support, but I've never been in a place like DC where you have all the different structures. And, it's a lot that the kids have to experience on their way to school, on their way home from school. My students who, maybe traveling from an area that's a little bit more difficult to travel from versus others, they feel a need to protect themselves. And that in itself is different from what I've experienced in a school system and back in Georgia versus being here in DCPS.
No, I would imagine, if we were to look at a New York school system, Chicago school system, those larger jurisdictions, and they may still have their differences, but I mean, it's just so many things that you have to manage. And, this is really a question for anyone on the panel. You can jump in if you have an answer, but I guess in watching you guys work, no matter what school we go to, you might have the title of assistant principal, but it seems like almost at any point you're making principal or school-wide level decisions at a given moment. It may not even be scheduled. You're not like, oh, you're going to sit in on this meeting for me. It's just, hey, this situation arose. I am here. I'm going to tackle it, as opposed to, hey, we'll just put that in an email, send it to the principal. Is that a daily thing? I'm not there every day, so I just want to know, are you always like the president, ready to go at any moment? Like, is that your job? Is that your title? I mean, how you work?
Can I interject, guys? Is it okay? I just want to, make sure it's all right. I would, under this, we have a new leader in our building, Mr. Riddick Parker. He was at another high school in the district, and his enculturation of us as a staff is that he's creating 4 number ones, so that at any time that there's, he said, just because he's a former NFL player, he actually played for the Baltimore Ravens. He brings the concept of, if you're going to make a mistake, make it full speed. We're going to, we're going to go whatever you say, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Just, make a decision that, based upon you. That's why I spend so much time with my team and him, is because I want to think like how he thinks, so that in the event that I have to make a decision, I'm making a decision based upon the thought process in which he would think, if that makes sense. So I would say yes, that we have to be ever ready to, make a decision, but also, we'll have a conversation like, hey, I like your thought process behind that, but now we just got to fine tune it. But I'm with you on that. So it's good having that type of support from a leader who is going to have will slow you down if need be, but will, has faith in your decision making process and believes in situational leadership.
Does anyone else want to jump in on that one?
I'll add to it. I've worked in different environments and with different supervisors, and you have some supervisors that's really into micromanaging and really want their hands on everything, and you have supervisors that really want to empower you to be that next school leader. And if we just look at the way the pendulum, how it swings in education as far as us being in this role, maybe 10, 15 years ago, like our key thing was building an organization and school discipline. And that was it. As long as the building was running and things were going smoothly, you're doing an excellent job. School, whatever, is an amazing school. But now, with everything based on high stakes testing and people really trying to climb the ladder and so many decisions being based off school metrics, everybody's holding you accountable and everything is about instructional leadership at this point. And when we move in that direction, there's so many things being piled onto the plate, but nothing's being taken away. But I think I've been fortunate because a lot of the leaders that I've surrounded myself with have really built that capacity, that leadership capacity when it comes to instruction, when it comes to, like Kimbria was saying, being fluid. You never know what the day might throw at you. You come to school, you're like, yes, I'm going to work on this project. And then 8 o'clock in the morning, you're dealing with a COVID situation and you're going to spend the next 4 hours doing contact tracing. And your day's gone, Or, a parent comes in just extremely mad at the world and you have to address that situation. And, I'm a parent. I know we have other parents on the line as well. And number one thing as a parent, like you want to be heard, and some choice words may come out, and we can't let that stop us. So again, you have to be fluid. I forgot where I was going in the midst of all of that, but at the end of the day, we really want to make great decisions, and there's so much to do at this job.
I'm a guess none of you had contact tracing on your 5-year plan for your school. I'm just going to put that out there. That wasn't in there. You didn't get that on your bingo square. So we got a question that came in from the audience, and I want to throw that to Lawrence Smith. What about this question? It says, how can teachers, and maybe you can add teachers and admins, help their students navigate today's fraught political climate?
Well, I think with that, the best thing to fight that is always going to be education and establishing your voice. A lot of times our students will establish their voice, but they don't have the educational piece in terms of learning about history and learning what's going on and learning why you think what you think and being able to actually speak about that, talk about that, debate about that. So I think with that, just giving the students the tools where they actually have a knowledge base and they're not just going off the story that they've seen posted on Facebook or whatever they see trending on Instagram, and they read those little quick headlines of, from some blog posts, where they're actually going in and finding what is a valid resource and where can I find and do my research. What's valid? What is even a piece of information I should use, and then being able to develop that critical thinking part, a piece where they're able to break down and develop their opinion, not just because their grandmother said it or because mom said it or my cousin that works at the school said it, that they're developing their own ideas through just critical analysis, and then they're able to correctly articulate that with their own voice, with their own tone, and just speaking and advocating for themselves, which is eventually going to make them and develop those leadership qualities that's going to do well for them in life.
No, that muscle of actually thinking through what someone's telling you or what you're seeing and going out and looking for the next piece of information. Because there's levels to it too, right? Someone could just be trying to be malicious and giving you just completely misguided information, or even on the more innocent side, it may just be, hey, they took a couple variables and came to a conclusion. It could just you could take the same 3 variables and come up with a different conclusion. Doesn't mean that person was trying to be, malicious or had any ill intent behind it. Just maybe something that came up different. But for you and that child or a teacher to keep building that habit of trying to deduct and figure out what's happening here, it's really important, and that'll serve them well, whether it's looking at the news or going to work. Because right now, if I was to go into my office at work and tell them, hey, this is what it is, all right, well, that makes sense. You said it in a very convincing manner, so you must know what you're talking about. Well, I need people to check me too, because I may not necessarily have gotten all my things lined up the way I should. And so I'm gonna get a little selfish here. My organization is Black Men Read, right? So I'm always gonna want to know, what can we do better to help? What can we do? I'm a father, I'm a community member, I'm a community organizer. And so there was something that you quoted, Robert, and it was from a book by, and I don't want to say his person's name wrong, but Baruti Kafeli.
Yes, Principal Kafeli.
Kafeli. In his book, Motivating Black Males to Achieve in School and in Life, he mentioned there were 3 crises. And it's the community crisis, the family crisis, and the self crisis. And oftentimes I'm like, what do you guys need the most? What do you need my focus in? Should I be focusing in on just getting our family right and working on my child's self-identity? Should I be working and trying to partner with you? How do I play? There's so many opportunities to help. And other than just do all of them answer, what do you think the real focus should be? And I'll throw that to you and Dr. Jackson as well. What should we do as the outsiders? If you had your wish list of this Black male or Black males that like me in your community, what would you ask us to do to work on? What would you focus us in on?
You want me to start, Robert?
Ladies first.
Okay. So one of the things I would like to see happening is some effective mentorship type programs happening. I think, we come across organizations all the time that are saying, hey, we want to mentor, we want to do this, or we want to do that, and we want to start this initiative and that program. But it really takes an organization that really wants to that sees the vision of the school and can put the work and time in efforts to make that vision come to fruition. For example, I think at my school, I don't have my male students, my Black male students are not reading as they should. But again, we have some things we've put in place to kind of support that and try to get, our kids reading, not just even our Black men, but since we're, for the sake of the conversation, just trying to get them to read more. And we start with the reading of the small thing, the smallest of smallest things. And we start there with them. But I think for someone coming in, it's like, what are you willing to do as far as the outside and extra time that it takes to reach our student? That comes with building that relationship with them, but also in the meantime of it, showing them and educating them through that program that reading is essential to your education, and you can't do anything without the reading. So I would like to see more Black males in school, involved in schools, volunteering in the schools, showing up to events, really putting in that support. And the reality of it is, a lot of times the organizations that have been formed don't necessarily have that type of time to devote to the in-school piece. I think it's a lot of, we'll come up after school, but I need you there the same amount of time I'm there to kind of pull this thing off. So I'll let you start. I'll let you jump in, Robert.
No, I think that's a drop mic moment.
That's what it's
But
not like.
yeah, but seriously, you hit the nail on the head. That being present, like that piece, is so important. And as a father, as someone who works countless hours, I know that time isn't always available. But the mentorship piece is huge. When we look at our students, and I'm not sure if your areas are the same, but a lot of what we see as far as adults around us are blue collar workers. So more people that's coming in working at jobs that we didn't see in our community, like to be famous or meant to be rich. You worked at a hospital, you were a doctor or you're a lawyer, and that was it. So there's so many careers out there. There's things being invented this second that's going to be a huge career 5-10 years from now that didn't exist or doesn't exist now. And really having those conversations about it. Like I like to, when I was in the classroom, I used to have this wall with some of my friends on there, just the pictures. And it would always be a conversation. If I was teaching about a certain subject, I'll bring up, like, say, my friend Alicia, who now grew up in, I won't tell her background, but basically, like, she has an amazing job at this point. And I like to relate it. And I have a student of mine who lives in Gilpin Court who kind of reminds me of her. And I use that as a segue and a way to make a connection as to, if you do what you do right now, 2 years from now when you graduate, your whole life circumstances are going to change. And not only for you, but for your family that's coming beyond you. So that mentorship piece is huge, building those connections with our students and just showing them the possibilities. I remember years back, my niece was dating this guy, and I was going back home to Roanoke, and my sister didn't tell me that he was supposed to be riding with us. So we're in the car on the highway, and he just had this deer in headlights look in his eyes. So I looked, I said, "Have you ever been out of Richmond?" He's like, "No, sir." And that was an opportunity to educate this young man. So many of our students haven't been outside their neighborhoods. They don't know the north side from the south side, and using these as opportunities to have them experience the world. If it's through field trips, or if it's through conversations, if it's through books, like finding ways to like really meet them individually and see what their likes are and connect them with people that's doing similar things, or, people who can connect them to someone else who's doing it.
I completely agree, and I understand the challenge too. We have the same pull. We're trying to get people to come into elementary schools and do some reading, to sit and mentor with people who are hesitant to read. Maybe they're not inspired to read, and it's more than just throwing books at them. So we got to do more work around connecting, and it does take time. And we hear the same thing. Well, I don't have time. I can't do it. I can do it after 5. So yes, all those activities are that I do have, those get eaten up, right? But anything that's inside of the school day, especially before 3 p.m., it's a ghost town getting those resources. But I think that's where we got to start, as opposed to where we try to figure out later. We got to go there first. And so for our Black males, specifically, I know we have challenges on a bunch of different areas, but how do we fix that? I think you just gave us a really big nugget, and it was, we didn't have a mic physically to drop, but that was probably it. I do want to shift it around a little bit. If you were to look inside of education as a whole, you don't have to just use your school district. What is something from your seat that you would like to see change is how we approach education in general, how we approach our students? Is there something that you just maybe overall that we need to fix and change?
I'll start. There are several things I would like to see change. And I think operating during this pandemic showed a lot of things. I'm an advocate for virtual school and virtual learning for those that it is appropriate for. My dissertation work and my research was based upon virtual schools. And so this is something that I've had an opportunity to dig into. And I think that what we have to do is provide our students with more than one way of learning. It's not always the best. Some of our students, they thrived in virtual learning. That was everything for them. And some of our kids did not, right? So they need that traditional setting to be able to learn. And so that's something that the option to be able to be a part of a school community and operate virtually if you need to, and traditionally if you need to. So that is something I would like to see. And I don't mean necessarily a blended model. A blended model is great, but I would like to see where a student that is learning or homeschool still be attached to my school, meaning that they are able to go and participate and do all the activities and be a part of the school community. They're just learning differently and at a pace that works for them. And I think we have to move away from this one size fit all. And I think when we forced kids back into this in school environment, that we didn't take those things into consideration, that the in school may not work for a student that was really thriving at home where they could totally focus in on what was being said in the class, versus now you're back in when you have these other distractions. And I think the thought was, we just got to get everybody back in school, and we need the kids need to be in school, the kids need to be in school. And I would like to see them have that opportunity. I envision for high school students something more along the lines of a college learning atmosphere, and moving into something of that sort. So if they have a class that's online, great. If that class is at 9 a.m. in the morning, it's at 9 a.m. in the morning. If they have a class at 5, they have a class at 5 o'clock. And I think we have to just kind of move away from this traditional setting of learning, because we learned in this pandemic that there are obviously other ways, and we don't have to be stuck in one way.
Lauren, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Wow. Well, there's a few different things. Probably one thing that really, and I can only speak from my area down here in Texas and the way things are. So when we have special education kids that aren't performing well, we have a pot of money for that. When we have our English language learners, if they're not performing well, we have specialized pots of money for that. For our children of color, our African-American students, a lot of times there is not a specific program that specializes in helping. And so what you end up with is we end up doing what's called response to intervention. And so we intervene in that way. However, special education has a specific amount of money, which means they get specialized tools, maybe iPads, maybe they have rules where you can only have a certified teacher that teaches these kids, same thing with ESL. And so when we identify populations, and not just African-American students, if it was any other sub-pop, and we see that things are not going well for them and they're not progressing in the way that they need to, that we can put funding towards that specifically funding and resources. So that would be one thing. And then another thing, just like Dr. Jackson was saying, as we move away from traditional schools, I know my district has done a phenomenal job of making those specialized campuses. So we have, a STEM campus, and we have a fine arts academy, and we have an academy where it's for acceleration for students that need to finish up early and maybe go to work the other half of the day. And we have early college. And so I would just like to see more advancement in those things so that each child has a place. And so we have the Career and Technology Center where students go over and they are hands-on. They're learning mechanics. They're learning how to weld. They're in there breaking apart cars, fixing up things, doing those hands-on things with construction. And so I just am very blessed to work for a district that is already doing those schools of choice and innovation, but I would like to see more of that statewide so that every kid that comes in, every kid's not going to kick a soccer ball. Everybody's not going to run a football. Everybody's not going to be able to dunk a basketball. And we need to have, what kids can do well, what they can get certified in. And when they're 17, 18 years old, they've already figured out, hey, I'm certified. I'm a CNA. I can already make, $17, $18, $19 an hour at 18 years old. So that's something I would like to see that more prevalent in Texas for sure. And all around, that more schools of choice where people are able to kind of go into their niche as to what they feel is going to be best for them. And
I'm looking at the comments really quick. It looks like people are agreeing with what both of you have said, virtual learning is excellent for some, but
Mm.
also draws a hard line between the privileged and the non-privileged with regard to internet access. I do like with some of the school districts around here. I can't speak for everywhere around the country. During these times, they were adding, giving away hotspots and things like that to try to appease that part of it. I want to say there was some internet trucks that they had internet access on them. Students can come in and get a meal during COVID times, and then also get that. And I would love to see that where that's not just a pandemic response idea, but it's something that we do ongoing. Again, going back to the comment that there were some students that they come to school for shelter and a warm meal. So I'd like to see that happen. Now, so we get ready to get to the close. I have something a little bit of fun that I want to do before we close, and we'll get each of you to do that. I do want to remind everybody here, go get the book, Next in Line to Lead. Even if you're not in the educational system, if you are, it's even better. But if you're not, this is an excellent book. You'll love the insight from each of the assistant principals that did write an essay there. So before we get to the last round robin, there is one last question I did see. Jason Shepard asked, who is virtual school appropriate for, in your opinion? I think, Dr. Jackson, this is kind of pinning off of some of the things that you had said. Lauren, some of the things you said as well. Is there a target group that virtual school seems to be appropriate for, whether it's their learning style, their academic success? What group would you say that's most appropriate for, or groups that's most appropriate?
I would say, because we are operating in the land of technology, and our students start off extremely early, on their tablets or on laptops or on cell phones or so on and so forth. But I do feel that group of students needs to be in school. I think that they have to, or should, I won't say have to, but I think that there's a need for students to be, in that nurturing state, to learn other things that you may not necessarily get at home that you actually learn while you're in school. So I do think that there is an opportunity for students who are older to be able to engage in the level of learning in which I was speaking about. For example, I think secondary, really mainly high school students that are able, but I do have some really smart 8th grade students who could probably get finished and graduate earlier. They come to me. I had a 9th grade student that came to me and had already taken AP Calculus. And so when I'm speaking of, these types of things, I think that we have to provide them with other opportunities. Yes, we do have dual enrollment and things of that nature, but I also feel like later as we, go on through the years of education, I see things changing as far as the structure is concerned, especially for our secondary students, our high school students mainly. So I would say that I feel like high school students could benefit from the less traditional setting versus our younger kids, our middle school kids and our elementary kids.
I think that's exactly right. I have 2 students. They're both in college now. My oldest, he thrived in this work from his home kind of environment. He loved it. No pressure. He wasn't an experiential learner. He reads it, he gets it, types it up. He's good. My youngest is more hands-on. He needs the interaction between students. He needs the teacher to draw it on the board. He needs that kind of learning. And he just wasn't catching it as easy online. So you definitely saw some impact in his grades. So we're getting close to the end. We're actually, really getting to the end point. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I know you guys got to get back to the wonderful work that you do in the morning. I have a really easy way for us to close. Each of you will get your last few words in. But the way we will do it is you'll answer 3 questions. 2 of them a little lighthearted. And then third, because we are a book club focus, we are about reading, we do need to know what your last great book is. So the 3 questions you'll ask, and we'll do it in order. Which do you prefer, city or the country? Number 2, do you have a messy desk or a clean desk? And number 3, what's the last great book you read? So I will start, Lauren. We'll start with you, Lauren, Dr. Jackson, Robert, and we'll end up with Mr. Pitt.
All right, so let me make sure I can remember all three of these questions. So I know number one, I keep a clean desk because clutter makes me nervous. And I think what was the other question? It was the lighthearted question.
City or the country?
Oh, I'm a city girl, 100%. So I'm a city girl. And the last book that I read, it's technically not the last one, but I'll definitely say it was the best. It's Mass Incarceration by Jill. I think it's Jill Alexander. Just very, very impactful. I believe it's called Mass Incarceration.
Got the new Jim Crow.
Yes, the new Jim Crow. Read it
John
once, and actually went through and read it a second time. I just, man, that one really opened my mind and opened my thinking. So yes.
That's a heavy one. So it's a great book. It's a great book. If you have not read it, The New Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander is an amazing book. So thank you for being here, Lauren. Thank you for your time. We'll go to Dr. Jackson next.
Okay. I think the first question was city or country. Yeah. You know, I was raised a country girl, but I have moved to be a city girl. So city for me. Definitely city for me. My desk, I have to keep it clean. As Lauren said, I cannot stand a lot of things on my desk. It makes me it makes me feel a little panic and just unnerved. Like I can't really do what I need to do because stuff is just everywhere. So I don't like that. I like to keep my office space nice, neat, and tidy. My last book, actually, and in the process of reading this book now, actually, the title of it is "We Want to Do More Than Just Survive" by Dr. Bettina Love. Wonderful, wonderful book.
Yes.
I'm doing this as a book club for my school. We're using it as a professional development. So we want to do more than survive. Just survive.
That was an excellent book. I got to interview her. Amazing person. She's a hooper.
Yes.
She can hoop. She said she still got it. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true.
Okay, Dr. Love.
Dr. Love said she still put up 30 if you ask her. But you got to ask her.
She made really good relationships with her kids based off of her, sports and everything. And I heard Lauren mention that she coached, and I used to coach basketball as well and softball. So I know exactly how I used that very thing when Lauren was saying it. It sat very well with me because I could feel you and everything you were saying. I was like, I already got you. So I got you.
Well, no, look, if you have not read that book, two great suggestions so far. No pressure for Rashad and Robert. I better come with the heat.
All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson, for being with us. Robert, we'll go to you next.
All right. Well, first, I want to say again, thank you for having us and putting this together, Demetrius. You know, you and I work together a lot. You're helping my son and his friend Ryan tremendously, so I appreciate you for that. So definitely a city guy for me. I love big cities across the nation and other countries as well. My desk, have to say a little bit of organized chaos.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna put that in the messy category. That's
we're gonna shift to messy. But as far as books, right now, this is the first audiobook I've really gotten into. Conversations with Strangers, and the audiobook is pretty cool because when he goes back and reference certain things, he used the actual audio from that time. So like when he talks about spies in Cuba, he'll throw in like some of the actual audio tapes. And then he was talking about Sandra Bland and, taking things from her podcast and just from the actual dashboard footage. So I thought that was pretty cool. I have New Jim Crow as well. I pick it up every couple of months. I haven't made my way through it. I think it's all the numbers and all the stats that she throws out there that kind of stops me, and just some personal feelings I have about just the prison system and whatnot. But great book. So that's where I am, I guess. The Conversation with Strangers is where I am right now. It's a great book.
No, it's an excellent book. And you guys just reminded me on the New Jim Crow, she mentioned, and this kind of goes into our conversation, she mentioned the concept of a bird cage, and that you keep the bird encaged by having multiple layers of things that can stop them. So when we talk about community working with school and parents working with school, there's so many things that we need to get done. We can't just pick at one piece and think we're going to succeed. We got to work on all the pieces at once. So Conversations with a Stranger is the third book. We'll definitely get this list out to the folks who are listening. And last but not least, Mr. Pitt, what you got? We got 3 cities. So we don't have any country yet. We got two clean desks and one almost messy. What you got for us, sir?
So I I'm a city guy, but I am. If people didn't know if I didn't tell you where I was from, they wouldn't be able to tell you. Be able to figure out that I was a city guy. So I would say I like the rural area. I live in Prince George County, and it's very rural to the point where I have to bring a hotspot on top of my internet so that I can work. So I like the country. I walk around barefoot. I don't even like to wear shoes. So I would say that I'm a country guy. My desk is definitely messy. I can function in chaos. I think that's just a man thing for the most part. You know what I mean? I think me and Rob, I think that's just what it is. And I'll do a little plug. The last book I was involved in was Lauren Smith's Thoughts of a Brown Child. So I'm still working on that, Lauren. I've quoted you. I got. Honestly, the last book I finished was Cry Like a Man by Jason Wilson. Just talking about toxic masculinity and just hearing his love for his love and relationship with the Heavenly Father, and just how he conducts himself, like the cave of Devilim that he has, like the way he's mentoring the young boys. Man, just seeing a man who reverences God. I got struggles, of course. Don't let me get me wrong, but to see the way he references God and his love for his wife, his love for his children, it just makes me reflective on my journey and how I would like to get to that point, and just maturity and being a man, like understanding that there's multiple layers to who you are, being a provider, not just a provider as a husband, but also being a nurturer, and just understand that you're just more than just there to be. You're there to be also to submit to your better half as well. Just the different layers of being a man. Just I appreciate him talking about that. And then I'm still working on Promised Land by Barack Obama.
That one is a doozy. That one's what, 700 pages? I actually read it. It is a long book. He could have made that probably 500. I'm gonna go with it. You take from that what you want to take from that. But no, I really appreciate everyone being here. Again, I appreciate the work you guys are doing. If you need anything from us, some of the things that you find passionate about, we find passionate about. So just as we're working with Robert at Code RVA, we're coming your way, Mr. Pitt. We're signed ourselves up to work for Richmond City. And so we're looking forward to doing other partnerships outside of the city as well. So we're going to be there, sir. I did get one other country vote in the chat. He said your country. He's from Grapeland, Texas. I don't know if you know where that is, Lauren.
That's my coworker. That's my
your coworker. Okay.
Yeah, they used to be my coworker about 2 years ago, and he is country. We love
Grapeland. Is that anywhere near like Dallas or?
No, it's about 2 hours from Dallas. It's I don't know, maybe close to Tyler, maybe. I don't know.
Tyler. Okay. Well, at least that give me some kind of balance. But look, I really appreciate it. Thank you for everything you've done. Again, for those who are on, please go check the book. Get it on Amazon. That's why I got my copy. It's a great book and a great read. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Hey, Demetrius, can I get one plug? I know you say you purchased yours on Amazon, but I want to shout out to all the great authors right here. If you purchase it directly from the authors, each one of us get the proceeds. So if you're close to one of the authors, definitely reach out, shoot emails. All of us, I'm pretty sure you can Google at some point or somehow. We're all on social media, and you can reach us through Mr. Frazier. So support these great people and what they're doing. We work for pennies.
I'm gonna do y'all one better. We're gonna give away 4 copies. So I'm gonna buy one from each one of y'all. Hopefully you can sign it if that works out. And
Thank
so
you.
I see. Oh, we're not gonna give one to Jason. Jason already probably got a copy, but I see a couple names in here. We're gonna give away some copies today. So we'll make those orders and we'll give it out.
Hey, Mr. Frazier, I can give you a book. I'll purchase a book and give it to you, but I want you to come to the building and sign it so we can have a meeting on how you can work with my population. So
this guy thinks like me. I like him. Go support a Black-owned business at the same time. Look,
Right.
hey, great conversation. Everyone's saying the same thing in the comment. I really appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful evening. Again, join us next time for our next conversation on Monday, the 27th, September 27th. We'll be talking with Disha Filial, Secret Lives of Church Ladies. These are the kind of conversations we need to have around education. You may be talking about religion, but we want to make sure to have those conversations as family. So until next time, everyone have a wonderful evening and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.